The Squawk Exploratory Committee has been called to order. GOP candidate, former Minnesota Governor Tim Pawlenty joins us now. So much to talk about, Governor. We'll get to Minnesota. I don't know how much we can get done on that because, you know, everybody says you were there sleight of hand when you were there. That's how you balanced everything, and now it's coming home to roost. And you would say, look, this guy's owned it for 6 months. Other governors have to do hard things. It's not my fault. I don't know if there's any upside to trying to decide that issue here. I'd rather have you decide what should these guys do. What should the president do? What should Boehner do? What should Eric Cantor do? What should the president's base do? And what should the Republican base do? How are we going to do this?
Well, short version on Minnesota is, when I was there, the Democrats said I cut things to the bone, and now they're saying I didn't. So which is it? But beyond that, look, every time I was governor of Minnesota, every budget cycle, that budget was balanced. And the last one just ended last week, June 30th at midnight, and ended in the black with a surplus. As to the next budget coming up, it's a projected 20+% increase in state spending. That's what the Democrats want to spend. I would have never allowed that as governor. That deficit wouldn't exist as I was governor. But as to the national situation, which parallels Minnesota to some extent, look, this is a grave moment for the country, but it's also a moment for people to do the right thing and get about the business of structurally changing the spending habits and patterns of this federal government. And right now in these negotiations, that's not happening. But look, if they're going to raise the debt ceiling, they should get something good for it and put the country on the path to real reform. In the long term, in my view, that's a constitutional amendment to balance the budget, because I don't believe politicians will go to Washington and live within their means. In the short term, they need to do something to start changing the structural spending patterns of the country, and that's why I've put these proposals on the table of cut, cap, and balance.
That's the problem, though, Governor. And Andrew constantly is asking for people to do the right thing and to rise above politics and do the right thing for the country. Unfortunately, the right thing is different things to different people. And on the House Republicans think the right thing is not raising taxes, and House Democrats or Senate Democrats, wherever, think that the right thing is not putting a lot of the austerity on the backs of people that can least afford to shoulder it. So they're both trying to do the right thing, and neither one of them is going to do the right thing that the other one wants them to do. So,
well, we can all agree on this, I think, setting aside the rhetoric of the right and the left for the moment. Just look at it as a matter of elementary school math. They take in about $2.2 trillion in revenues, and they're spending about $3.5 trillion in expenditures. And we can all agree on this. Quit drowning the government. Quit drowning our country in debt and deficit. $40,000 a second as this show ticks by is what they're spending that they don't have. And so we should all agree they have to live with the money they have. The revenues coming into the government have kept pace with the growth in the private economy. The thing that's been out of line, the thing that's been out of whack and balance is the growth rate of government spending. It's a multiple of the growth rate of the private economy. So you got to look at how we got into this hole. But in terms of what do we do? What can we agree on? How about this? Live within your means and quit spending the country over the cliff.
Governor, I just want to do a quick fact check. You just suggested that, from what I understand, that we have taxes or revenue that's coming in now at the same pace. Is that how did he say it? How did you say that just now?
Well, if you growth of the private sector.
Of the private sector, and I'm not sure that's necessarily the case. I also would argue, and I think people around this table might argue, Steve might argue, that that the tax revenue that we brought in is actually lower than historically what we brought in. So I think there is a revenue issue. Is there not in your mind?
If you look at this historically, pick your time period, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and look at the rate of growth of the federal budget, you can see that it far exceeds the average growth rate in GDP or the growth rate in the private economy by a long shot. So
receipts as a percentage of GDP, federal receipts, are as low as they've been since the 1950s.
But under the same tax rate, under the same book, under the same tax rates that we have now, they were above in 2006, 2007, until the recession. The receipts were not below. They were above the historical average. They were above the historical average. You
look at the computer.
06,
right.
07.
There's below.
Where's 06 and 07?
That's right here. That's
and what's the historical
receipts.
average? Because it was
historical about 18%.
Right in there, and 06 and 07 under the Bush tax cuts, they were right in line.
Revenues to GDP in the U.S. are about as low as they are in the OECD. But the question I would have,
recession, not because of tax rate.
If the governor's still on, is the governor still with us?
Yes.
Okay. So question I have, because I'm from Canada, so I'm looking at this, say as a non-resident, but we have a situation.
This, you know,
laughing
at us.
Well, I'm not laughing at all.
I know.
You know?
No, I know.
But here's my assessment from, say, outside the U.S. looking at the situation is, why are we holding, say, financial markets and maybe even the economy at hostage over the debt ceiling? Why we know that there's an election just over a year away. Why don't we make fiscal probity, the road to fiscal austerity? Why don't we make that the election issue? Raise the debt ceiling. It's going to have to be raised anyway. Raise the debt ceiling, get all this other stuff away, and make it the election campaign, because it's only a year away. Instead of holding the markets hostage. This is making front-page news every single day.
One of the one of the things I learned as governor is politicians most of them are like running water downhill. They'll go to the point of least resistance. So putting up some points of resistance in dramatic moments is one of the ways you can get real change. And so this is uncomfortable. It's awkward. I know it's concerning to the markets for understandable reasons. But if we don't get people in Washington, D.C. to take this seriously and actually make the tough decisions, they always say, hey, look, we're going to make the tough decisions. We'll do it. We'll do it. And then they never do. And now you're saying, again, kick it to the next election. Then the next group can decide.
The next election is only, less than a year away.
This is the time. Well, it's over a year and a half away or so. So, everybody always says they will one day make the tough decisions, and they never do. Now is the time. The hour is late, and these problems are big. And the only way you're going to get people to do something tough is to put their backs up against the wall.
If the debt ceiling isn't passed, it's going to make the non-passage of TARP. Remember, it's going to make that look like a a walk through the park. It's going to be. I think it could be cataclysmic, and it's not about a default. It's about all of a sudden you're going to have a 10% contraction in the economy in like one day, and I think it's going to be very destabilizing. So I don't know. I guess you're right. In the overall scheme of things, a year and change to me is not like eternity.
Well, under what circumstances, then, if not now, when will they ever do it?
Because
under what circumstances
at the time they make the budget appropriations, not when they're raising the debt ceiling. The debt ceiling is already
how's that been working? How's that been working?
It's not working, but it's not going to work any better to do it at the wrong time. Do it when. So you favor default by the United States. Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is,
under any circumstances, you would not raise the debt ceiling without sufficient spending cuts.
They've already gone through the debt ceiling. They went through it in May. So I'm saying I wish they wouldn't raise it. But if they're going to raise it, at least get some structural reform and improvement so we're on a better trajectory going forward.
But, Governor, hold on the other side here. Are you saying you are willing to accept default and or breaching the debt ceiling in the absence of sufficient spending cuts?
No, I think they're going to have to raise the debt ceiling. But what I'm saying is if they do that, as they do that, they should get some structural reform. Because if they don't do it now, they're not going to do it down the road.
What if the Senate goes to the Republicans? What if, it's not... You're running for president. Obviously, you think there's a chance that President Obama isn't going to get a second term. So if the Republicans took the Senate, Republicans were in the presidency, you'd see some spending cuts without tax increases. I can guarantee you that. So why not go past the election, raise the debt ceiling till past the election, and let the voters decide, and let both the Republicans and Democrats make their case between now and November 2012.
That's just the same. That's just business as usual. It's just business as usual.
Not if the country gives a clear mandate to one party or the other.
Yeah, it's the manana approach. We'll do it down the road after the next election. One day we'll really make the tough decisions, trust us, and they never do. That's why I know this is uncomfortable. I know it's awkward. I know it concerns the markets. But these dramatic moments are the only circumstances under which we might actually get some courage out of Washington, D.C.
Now you sound like we got to use the crisis to try to do tax reform and entitlement reform by August 2nd.
No, how about anything? How about anything of structural change, not a Band-Aid over a broken bone, but we need something of significant structural change, and I put my ideas on the table. But, including entitlement reform.
I don't know what you need to do either to get more, you look like you're on a roll, and then people seize on one Obanomics, whatever it was, and here you are again. So we're watching you closely to see that traction come. Maybe it's going to be Iowa. I don't know. You do some backflips or something. I don't know what you need to do. What do you think you need to do at this point to rise above the pack?
Well, I'm confident as people get to know my record in Minnesota, which is I don't just talk about spending cuts and government reform and pension reform and health care reform the right way. I actually did it, and that's a differentiator, and I think people are starting to realize that. And the rest of the field is, I don't think, can say the same thing.
All right, Governor, thank you for all your time.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. We'll see you again soon later on.